And Dee Wallace, yeah, there we go. Welcome. Oh, almost the whole family is back. Yeah. All right. And look, yeah, I think your microphone should work. Anyhow, I'm going to give this one.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
Testing, yeah, testing.
Oh, we'll pass the code.
Oh, I don't understand. Oh, all right. Anyhow, you guys missed, we did a dramatic recreation of the E.T. film through the book. Yeah, it was great.
Pretend to be Tom Jones with them.
Yeah. I guess, I was talking with some of the cast earlier today, and we were like, how is E.T. at Frightmare in the Falls? But actually, it kind of began as a scary movie, as Night Skies that Steven Spielberg was putting together. And I'm curious if anyone, how it turned from something that was meant to be truly terrifying to something that is truly terrifying if you're 5 or under. But I wonder if you guys could talk about how this all came together from the get-go.
Robert?
Well, it was only knowledge I've gleaned after the fact, but I think it had to do with Steven was filming Raiders of the Lost Ark in Tunisia. He had the initial ideas for Night Skies, and John Sayles had written a script, but Melissa Matheson, who was just wonderful, who, she wrote The Black Stallion and Indian in the Cupboard and so many great movies, but she was with Harrison on the set of Raiders of the Lost Ark. And she said, hey, Steven, I have an idea I want to run by you. At the same time as he was already thinking about an alien-themed project. And I think they got together. I've heard stories since that she just, got together with Steven while they were filming in Tunisia, and that idea germinated with them, those two.
In other words, we really don't effing know.
From what I understand, I'm gonna just hazard a guess here.
Yeah, go for it.
Stereo,
yeah.
That's why he's a podcaster.
This was what it was like the whole time on the set.
From what I understand, they were really deep into pre-production on Night Skies. Rick Baker had actually designed the aliens and actually produced the aliens, and the ETs are actually in a book called. Do you know what Keyseen book is called?
Yeah.
It's like a definitive history of the movie E.T. So if you want to actually see what now?
Is it from concept to classic?
From concept to classic.
From concept to classic. Oh, okay, cool. So yeah, that was the first time that I saw Rick Baker's. Were you joking?
No.
Okay.
Available on Amazon.
All right, yeah, and I'll find retailers. But yeah, that was the first time I ever saw Rick Baker's actual original ET designs. Fully constructed. So if you want to see it, check out that photo.
We were also
I
chatting.
realize I didn't answer that question.
That's okay.
All right, no, I think that I'll continue that. So
Okay,
I
go
think
for
that Spielberg felt uncomfortable about presenting aliens in such a negative light because he didn't actually think of them that way in reality. So, and I think that the cloud just do a complete reversal. And Rick Baker
Oh, I
wasn't.
like him even better now. I do.
Yeah, that was sweet, right? So and he respected Rick Baker, and he knew Rick Baker designed all those creatures, but he still had to say, sorry, it's a no-go, and Rick Baker didn't want to continue with the project.
And I think there was also at the end of Close Encounters, when the aliens finally do come out, that was called Puck, and there were these really there's one with very elongated Slender Man limbs, which I thought was terrifying, but most of them are actually these little kids, and so it feels like an extension of kind of the stuff that he was working on back in the late 70s.
And that's also Carlo.
Yeah, yes, that's right.
Carlo.
Who designed those, right?
Beautiful. Yeah, the aliens in Close Encounters are beautiful. That was the year Star Wars came out, and both of them had a big impact on my life. But Carlo is such a beautiful artist, and that's Carlo's work in Close Encounters.
I'm telling you, the first time I walked on the set, we had to have badges and everything, the high security. And I walked on the set, and I turned to the right, and there was E.T. with 3 guys standing around him. And I stopped in my tracks when I saw E.T. It was like you could see this little person's soul. It was the most unbelievable moment. You just thought he was another person. It's the only, now I know once you got into working with him, it was a different experience at times.
Yeah.
But for me, that moment of just seeing him with those 3 men was magical for me.
My encounter with them was before that, when we were doing the bike scenes. The bike scenes were filmed out of sequence, so they were filmed first, the bike chase, and I showed up, the first day on the set, and it wasn't the real E.T. that you see with his face moving and everything, and they had determined that that model was too heavy to put in the basket, because when they tried it, Henry was on the bike and the whole thing just went over because it was like 50 pounds. And so they instead mocked up what you actually see in the film, which was very like a Halloween costume. And I thought, what kind of movie is this? Like, what budget are we talking here? Because it looks, they wrapped him real good in the blanket and everything, but it was just
it was
the
like
eyes.
it was like a foam core thing that just gave the shape.
It's like
You
we're
looked at
talking
it,
Mac and me, sub Mac and me.
Yeah.
Like Turkish E.T.
Okay. All of this sort of segues into my other kind of thought and question was like, it must have been like, working for Steven Spielberg post Raiders, which I assume would have been out at the point at which you were filming, and like, you guys are now working for like the biggest game in town, really, and like, and watching the movie, one of the things I love about the movie is how authentic the kids are. Like in movies, I'm a school teacher by day, so I know what kids are like, and like the depiction of the family feels very, very real. Like there's a bit where you're playing with Star Wars toys as the puppet, and it's actually not even from your point of view. I think you're just playing with toys. Like I played with toys exactly like that, and I'm curious.
So deep.
Yeah, how much of that, beautiful script by Melissa Matheson, but some of it feels genuinely real and improvised. Like you have absolute power. Your Yoda impression. Like I'm curious how free reign you were given to just be yourselves, because that's what it feels like to me.
A lot.
It wasn't necessarily that we had free reign to be ourselves, but Steven, and I think this is a good indicator of like a good director, he was open for those moments, and he was looking for those moments throughout the process, so that if he got an idea, in the middle of something, he could say, "Oh, guys, say this or do this," and a lot of those things, a lot of those scenes with like E.T. and Elliot in Elliot's room explaining things, a lot of those were kind of off the cuff, improv things. Oh yeah.
The dinner table scene, when I say, well, why don't you tell your father? And he says, I can't. He's in Mexico with Sally. Well, Mary feels all these tears coming up. And Mary thinks, oh, I can't let my kids see me cry. So I got up and left. And after Steven cuts, he comes over to me and he says, Dee, why did you get up and leave? That's not in the script. And I told him what was happening to me. And he took about 3 beats and looked at me and turned around to the crew and said, you've got 30 minutes, build me another wall in the kitchen with a sink with running water. So he could take me over to the sink and bring me back into that big close-up where I say he hates Mexico. And that's a perfect example of how magic really happens on a set. When the director trusts the actor to follow what the character leads you to do, and then sees a moment that they can expand on that makes a magical moment.
Yeah, you remember that time that Rob had that awesome ad-lib of crashing the car into the wall? what did Spielberg think of the magic of that?
Yeah, what was the magic of that? They didn't show me how to drive it backwards. The opposite of what I say in the movie. The Teamsters, showed me how to drive a car forward because they thought I was going to do the van. So they didn't teach me how to drive a car backwards. It wasn't my fault. But no, what he said, it's remarkable, really. With like this is, I would say, if there's any budding filmmakers, how nimble that set was. It's like the fact that he was able to get the crew to do that. It's a lot of things converged on that movie, but a big part of it was he didn't have the money guys breathing down his neck. The set, because all the studios had turned it down, so he didn't have people saying the bottom line, you can't do this or you can't do that. He had, complete free reign, but he was also open to others' ideas. And in fact, the other actors could bounce ideas off of him. For Sean Fry, there's a line I have where I'm like saying, you stay here, Mom, I'll go check it out about what's going on with the noise outside. And Sean Fry says, that sounds like something Mighty Mouse, like from a Mighty Mouse cartoon or something. And and then that was an idea that we ran with, and I did the Mighty Mouse song. I'm not sure if that was credited or what, but it was the Mighty Mouse song, the theme from Mighty Mouse. You stay here, Mom, we'll check it out. And that was Sean Fry's idea. So, and similarly, when I do the Yoda voice, that was Henry's idea. So my performance was completely an amalgam of everybody else's ideas.
Well, that really is when the magic happens, is when you're loose enough to allow those things to channel through you, and then your moment becomes somebody else's moment, and that becomes, oh gosh, and what about this? And pretty soon everybody's creating together and you get the best of the best, I think.
Okay, so speaking of which, there's a line that I've had in my head since the movie. Wait, should we do it? Yeah, 1, 2, 3. Oh, I tried so hard. It was nothing like that penis breath, right? Like,
that's where we were going.
I know. Is that a script line or is that?
That was a scripted line.
But what's great about it is that your reaction is so genuine. I've had that.
That's the great thing.
Yeah, because as a parent, I've definitely, my kids have done stuff and I'm like, I can't, I have to be stern, but it's hilarious. And like, how do you, because it seems so authentic, like it's so in the moment, like it almost like was an ad-lib line that you're reacting to. It's really great.
That's how good she is.
It was in the moment, and it was real, and I didn't have kids at the time, but I remember doing things and my brothers doing things and my mother going, stop, that is not nice,
But the craft is doing it for the coverage. Yeah. She did that once in a master take. She did that and then did it 14 times over, because that scene was the most covered, I think, of any of the scenes, maybe except for the spaceship taking off. Yeah. So that scene, there's a close-up of Drew, there's a close-up of Henry, there's a close-up of me. That scene, and she had the same reaction, and that's the craft. That's the hard part. She did a reaction, once, and then recreated it. It wasn't just one take. That's pretty good. That's pretty good. Learn that in acting class.
A lot.
Well, I mean, and it's also like, it's the movie where I know it, like John Williams won for best score. Like, it's the movie where, like, now that I look back on that year, it's like, so I think Gandhi won for best picture. Is that right? Yeah. But like, I got nothing.
Costume.
Oh, for Gandhi? For,
Not for sheets.
Right. You know, I have nothing against. It's interesting, but like, Gandhi's a good movie, and I got nothing against Gandhi, but like, it's not a movie. Certainly for me as a young person, like this movie has stuck with so many people.
Oh, you guys, it was an amazing movie.
It is.
Gandhi and E.T. Yeah.
Well, Gandhi, you know, the thing about Gandhi was that a young, you know, Daniel Day-Lewis made his screen debut.
Yeah. And robbed Paul Newman of his Oscar
That's right.
for Absence of Malice.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, the 80s. It was pretty good, yeah. Yeah. There was some good synth pop. I still listen to it. You know, the other thing about E.T., and I was saying to Matthew, like, you know, again, it's a horror convention, and yet when I think about E.T., the thing that resonates with me is, while there are elements of it, like the first 10 or 20 minutes do play like a horror film, like the way, you know, Steven Spielberg chooses not to frame people, the scientists, to show any of their faces, that they're like, you know, almost disembodied in some ways. It was a real stroke because we can't identify with them. Only later we realize it's Peter Coyote, and then we can start to empathize with him. And so that movie plays like a scary movie. I mean, your discovery of E.T. is a great jump scare. I think, you know, one of the great ones. But it's the intensity of those emotions I find is actually what, not that it makes me uncomfortable, maybe I guess it does a little bit. Like, I've come to that movie not prepared for how deep it goes into the lives of that family, and to the emotional depth of that movie, I find really notable.
Well, I think it's important to remember that at the time, right, the biggest Alien movie before that was Ridley Scott's Alien, and in the zeitgeist of the time, right, everybody was thinking aliens are bad. And so the studio wasn't really behind this idea of like a friendly kids alien movie. They thought it was a dud. They thought that no one would go and see it, or very few people would go and see it. So Poltergeist was the movie that was meant to be the hit movie, blockbuster movie. And
In their infinite wisdom.
Also, you know, like E.T. was kind of Steven Spielberg's bonus project that he could do with his friends, so that we can churn out some more of these blockbuster movies. So the studio didn't really know how to sell E.T. And if you look at the first trailers, they're it's very suspenseful, and it looks like a suspense movie. Oh, what's this mysterious force in the shed? You know, oh, it's so creepy. This boy, you know, he doesn't say much. He's just walking around, you know, and it's really not what the film was about at all. So it just goes to show you that. You know, audiences decide these things. Studios don't really know much. They're banks, and they loan money to filmmakers, and most of the time they get in the filmmakers' ways of telling the story because they want to make sure they're gonna turn a profit, right? So E.T., the phenomenon of E.T. surprised everybody, and because audiences were surprised by it, I think that's why it's so successful. That's why it's been a memorable film. But you guys did that. We didn't do that.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned about having horror elements. He did one horror television movie before that. Something Evil.
Yeah.
And it was not a bad horror film, but kind of a, you know, typical haunted house film. Poltergeist was, you know, a collaborative effort with Tobe Hooper, and you know, and so he got out some of his horror stuff. But I was thinking about the horror tie-in was, and it's really great and brilliant. Is think about the Halloween scene. he's POVing the shot through E.T.'s eyes through the ghost costume. And now this is like 3 years after, or 4 or 5 years after Halloween, after John Carpenter's Halloween, but he's turning it on its head. And now it's from the alien's perspective instead of the killer's perspective, and he's going out into the world.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of, he told, I remember talking to Steven, and we were talking about Phoenix. My grandparents lived in Phoenix, and he said he used to go to the horror films and make like fake vomit, and like it would be like Creature from the Black Lagoon or something, and he would pretend like he was throwing up and like dump it off the balcony.
That tracks. That's not in the Fablemans, I don't think. But,
And this is why directors never grow up.
But visually, I mean, it's such an interesting movie. You know, you see things that Steven Spielberg does all the time, like really well motivated shots. There's when you're sick, and I think you put like the thermometer by the light. Back in the days with like incandescent light would do that, but like I think there's a camera that actually tracks. You pull the light over and like the camera moves there someplace else. Like there's so many really good motivated shots in that movie. And then, you know, your experience is not obviously being on the other side of that camera, but I'm curious about finally seeing the finished film edited and with, you know, the maestro John Williams music. You know, the end of the movie I think is an unbroken music. Like it plays like an opera, like an aria from an opera. It's like 15 minutes of music with the whole bike chase leading to the end, and it's like you can't leave that movie not crying. And you know, I'm just curious, like what your experience having been in the movie to then actually watching the movie was like.
It hit me just like everybody else.
Me too.
Because I'd never seen the dailies, so I never saw the lighting, I never saw the framing. Obviously, I never heard the music.
Yeah.
So yeah, everything coming together, it's like it was a lot than I expected, but I definitely choked up. Just like everybody else.
You know, and really, for us, it was the same thing as all of you. It was a film about friendship and about hearts and about being there for somebody you care about. That's really what the film is about, and for me, and caring so deeply in how far you would go for somebody that you love. And I think it reminds us of the truthfulness of that and how important it is. Just like The Wizard of Oz does.
Yeah. I think it's the movie with like maybe the most iconic, if I think about what image from a movie kind of represents an era of Hollywood, it's what became the emblem logo, right? And it just stayed with us for so long, you know, collectively. I'm also curious, having been in the film, how that may have impacted your life, like outside of the film as well. Just this like most watched film, you know.
Well, Robert got called penis breath in high school.
Yeah, there was that. That was a direct effect. But also, I mean, at the same time as I was made fun of, the first semester of high school, I was the drama club, and I was sort of with the geeks and stuff, and then all of a sudden I'm getting invited to the football parties, like night and day, because I was a secret. I kept that secret. We took it serious. We were signed to a secretive, not to talk about the film, not to mention it. And it's funny because I saw a version of the film without music, like a rough cut, black and white, and it was a much different, more somber kind of film. And then I saw a sneak preview with an audience with the music, but I still couldn't talk about it. So I went home and I was driving around Irvine. I was riding on my bicycle around Irvine, California, where I grew up, which looks just like the neighborhood in E.T. And I was the music was going on in my head. And I told that to Steven, it touched him, because he said, "Thank you for that." I don't know if he meant thank you for not talking about it. Because, you take that, I don't know, Henry didn't either. He didn't mention it to anybody or tell his friends or anything.
I could tell.
Oh, that's good. You were on the farm in Texas.
Yeah, I was in the middle of nowhere.
You were yelling, and the coyotes would hear.
I told it to the vultures.
And then what was weird about it, what was kind of interesting was I remember like there was a huge campaign when it came, because it wasn't on video right away. And I might have been, was it like 88 or around that? Like I remember it was a massive, like everyone, I think about like the home video revolution, like they really pushed that thing on video and it had this whole other life. I remember just posting that.
They released it like 3 times in the theaters, and they had held off on releasing it outside of that because each time they put it in the theaters, they were making money. So they just kept putting it in the theaters, and then by 88, 89, everybody was, there's a drone.
I'm looking at you going, that bird is not going anywhere.
But yeah,
I'm
so
from Kansas, okay?
yeah, they were checking us out. Yeah. Yeah, I just saw it.
Oh, good, it wasn't just me.
Yeah, well, it was a very small fighter jet. A Harrier. No, but anyway.
Did they start? They were releasing ET all the way up until '88.
Yeah, I think they released it obviously 82 was the first time, but then they put it out in theaters again in 85, I think. And then
God, I don't remember any.
and then I feel like they released it once more, and the video release happened, like coincided. But
Alrighty then.
yeah, they were making a lot of money off of it. So
They
just,
still are.
They still are.
Every year they come out with 50 more products.
But none of them feature our faces, so they don't have to pay us.
Reese's Pieces did exceptionally well with that. I mean, I think they really, yeah.
Well, that was the Cinderella story because somebody.
Yeah.
Because in the script it was M&M's,
Yes,
and in the script it was D&D, but Gary Gygax, the guy that created D&D, he wouldn't allow it because
He thought
Because
that
he
we were
was
gambling on the
stupid.
game. There was a script note. There was a script note that said there's money on it. There's all these various accoutrements on the table. Raid was not in that equation. For some reason, there's raid on the table. Like there's huffing it or something. But like money was on the table, and he was only sent a few pages of the script with the D&D. And he thought that implied that we were gambling on the game, and he said, "I will not allow D&D to be, this." I overheard Kathy Kennedy telling Steven this.
Okay.
He said he would not allow gambling to be associated
Well,
with
that's
ET.
kosher.
I want to know why Mary allowed you guys to huff bug spray. what went wrong?
Mary never knew.
What
Mary
do you
never knew what the hell was going on in her house.
Mary didn't know that I had an alien in the
Which
closet.
is why.
Level of parenting.
Which is why you all wanted me as your mother.
They said that we had 5 minutes, like 4 minutes ago. So I thought I didn't open up to any questions. Oh wait. Now we probably have 3 minutes. 1 minute?
Well, we need
No minutes? Oh. Oh.
We need
5 minutes.
more.
Oh yeah. We should. I wish we lived in a time machine where we could. Hey guys, we have to give a massive props to the. We're all grown up. Yes.
To the table if you have any questions.
Oh, and yeah, we're gonna do one. You can take their picture, I guess, right? Now they're all. Look at all their phones.